So now let us understand what is a vector. A vector is a collection of objects, or sorry, collection of elements. Here I have numbers, right? 38, 32, 34, 38, 40. All these numbers are concatenated or combined, and I'm assigning it to an object called temp. So I've created an object. This is called as a vector, right? And if you do average, mean of all these numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know that the actual average is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 divided by 5, which would give you 3. But in this scenario, it will throw 1. It will just pick the first element because you have not created a vector. First, you need to create a vector, concatenate all these numbers using the assignment operator, assign it to an object X. Once you create a vector, then you can take average of that vector, mean of X. You get a 3. But the disadvantage with a vector is it is homogeneous. You cannot have combination of numerical and non-numerical values. Or if you have one vector with numerical, another with non-numerical, that would suffice. But you cannot have heterogeneous data, numerical and non-numerical data in a vector. So if I have that kind of data, if I want to deal with that kind of data, you need to proceed with list. And whenever within list you provide the values, you always have to put that in single quotes. So Y for numerical, for non-numerical values, for alphabets, for characters, you need to mention those in single quotes. So you're creating a list and assigning it to an object called rain. Vector is a collection of elements, right? So here vector is a collection of elements. What is an element? A number can be an element. So here we are creating another list of all these numbers and assigning it to an object called temp. So we have created two lists now. Now we can combine these two. We can combine these two. Though we have numerical and non-numerical, we can combine these two. But when it comes to vectors, you need to have both numerical or both non-numerical to be able to combine these two. Right? Now, I'm assigning this to an object called rain temp. And if we call this, you have combined successfully rain and temp, but we need to understand this. If you look at this one here says that this is coming from the first list. 1, 1, rows, comma, columns. So we are referring to the first row, and the first column here is Y. So you have Y there, which holds the first position. 1, 2 is row column, always it's a row column. So first row, second column. This is your first row, and this is the second column is N, no. So you have a no there. 1, 3, rows, columns. First row, third column. So this is your first row, and the third column is N there. 1, 4, row, column. First row, fourth column. So in this row, we are referring to the fourth column, which is yes, so on and so forth. And why do we have 2 here? Because we are referring to the second list. Right? So 2, 1 refers to the second row, first column, which is 38. So on and so forth. You have all the values here. Now, but this is looking very clumsy. The list is looking very clumsy. Right? So hence, what should we do? We can probably create a matrix which will have a neat structure. So I'm creating numbers 38, 32, 34, etc. and we are assigning it to an object called temp. So we have created one vector. we are creating another vector with numerical values, and we are assigning it to an object called PRCP, precipitation basically. So let me create this object. Now if we were to combine these two vectors which we have created, we can use a function called matrix. And here we are saying that, hey, I want to arrange these values by rows, and I want to arrange these in 2 rows, and I will say by column is equal to false. Now if I run this, oh sorry, my bad. Let me use by row is equal to true. Yep. So what did we just do? We have combined these two, temp and precipitation objects, and we are saying that we want to arrange these in 2 rows, row 1 and 2, and I'm saying by row is true. If I change this by row is equal to false, look at an interesting thing that would happen. These numbers 38, 32, you still want to stick to 2 rows. And another condition that you're putting on this particular function is that you do not want to arrange the numbers by rows. So 38, 32, 34, 38, 40 is not arranged in a row, rather those are arranged in columns, but still in 2 rows. How would that happen? 38, 32, you're arranging them in columns because by row is false. Then the next 2 elements, 34 and 38, are arranged in the second column. 40, 110 is arranged in the third column, so on and so forth. Why? Because you're saying by row equal to false. But still you are sticking to number of rows equal to 2. You can keep changing the arguments. If you change number of columns equal to 2 and run this, then you would arrange these 2 vectors in columns. But most often than not, we would be dealing with data which has both numerical and non-numerical values. And under such a scenario, what should we do? We should create a data frame. A data frame is heterogeneous, which can accommodate numerical and non-numerical values at one go. And data frame is also going to give you a neat tabular structure. So here we are creating a data frame. I'm creating a vector called temperature, and I'm assigning all numerical values to that. I'm creating another object called precipitation, and I'm assigning all these numerical values to this. And I'm also creating non-numerical values and assigning it to rain. And now let us see what would happen if we use this function data.frame. And we have assigned this to temperature, rain. So run that, look at that. This is neatly structured with the names of the columns, etc. So the name that you provide to the object would become your column name. That's a good part about data frame. And all those values are neatly structured here. And the moment you created a data frame, it would also appear here as a data frame. And if you click on that, you'd be able to see it here. So this is how you can neatly represent data in form of data frame. And hence most often than not, data frames are preferred because it can also collect or store numerical and non-numerical values at one go. Let me show you all the difference between R and RStudio. Let me open that application here. We have R. Here we go. You see RI386, that's for your 32-bit machines. And if you have 64-bit machine, it's RX64. Now the good part is when you install R, you'll be able to install R for both 32-bit and 64-bit machines. Depending on what machine you're using, you can open one of those. And installing R is mandatory to be able to install RStudio and use that. This is the base. R is the base. You have to install this first. On top of that, you can use graphical interface software such as RStudio. Now, what is the difference between these two? Do we have a console here, script window? No. Can I see what objects I have created here? No. For example, if I okay, once again, that's not working. Yeah. If I try to assign the numbers 1 until 5, for example, I really don't know whether this object got created or not. And if I want to know, I need to do this list of objects. Yep, A got created. However, if I'm going to create A, and if I'm going to assign numbers 1 until 5 here, you know that A got created because you see A here. That's the beauty. Second, I cannot write or segregate the script from the console when it comes to R. Third, I can import a dataset CSV file using import dataset option from text file. And I need to choose that specific file here. But here in R, if you want to do that, you need to write that. If you're reading a CSV file, it's read.csv, and you need to give the complete path. And if you want to install a package in RStudio, you can go to Tools, click on Install Packages. But if you want to install in R, you need to mandatorily know the function install.packages in this way. Yep. So these are a few differences between R and RStudio. RStudio is a graphical user interface which will only make your life easier. That is the only reason why we are resorting to this. All right. Now let us proceed further. We can define our own functions within R, or we can make use of the inbuilt functions. Here I'm writing my own function, and what would this function do? It is going to multiply the value with itself 3 times, right? And assign it to an object called cube. Let me do that first. There we go. Now cube of 2, it would take this number 2, that's your x, and if this function has to be triggered, 2 gets multiplied with 2 3 times, and then you'd get 8 there. So cube of 2 would be 8. 1:4, you can also run part of the code. So if I select only 1:4 and try to run that, 1:4 would give you these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would take first cube of 1. 1 multiplied by 1 multiplied by 1 is 1. Then it will be cube of 2. Cube of 2 would be 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, which is 8. Then it will be cube of 3. It's 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3, which is 27, so on and so forth. So let me run this. So you have 1 cube, 2 cube is 8, 3 cube is 27, 4 cube is 64. This is a function that we have written, but we can also make use of certain inbuilt functions. For example, we want to print the numbers in a sequence from 1 until 0 in the decreasing order of 0.1. And then we want to assign it to an object called A. So we want to start from 1 until 0, and we want to print all the numbers in the decreasing order of 0.1. So let me run this A and see what happens. There we go. So you have 1. If you reduce it by 0.1, it is 0.9. If you reduce it by 0.1, it's 0.8. Reduce by 0.1, it's 0.7, so on and so forth. Now let me erase everything. In order to erase everything, you can remember we thought that we'll look into that later on. We need to remove and say list equal to ls. If you only use ls, right, if you use only that part, so let me do this, let me remove this, ls would give you the list of all the objects which are residing here within your current session. Now if you say remove list equal to ls, you are trying to remove all these values. And if I do that, you would be able to see here that all the objects will get deleted from the session. There we go. That's a function. And if you want to clear the console, it is Control L. In this way, you will be starting off afresh once again.